Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is one foot in front of the other. And this is how we make a journey of 1,000 miles, right? It starts with one step and a renewed commitment from one step to the other. So before we get started, I think it'll be an interesting conversation. And before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the pressure, the motion, the friction, the temperature, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good to be here with you on this Friday. Welcome, Carolyn. Welcome, Rosalind. Great to have you guys with us. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us. We're talking about persistence and commitment, and one foot in front of the other, to be continuing to renew our commitment, even when sometimes the paces of that stepping onto the path become slowed, or when they quicken through all of that, and sometimes it might feel like we're at a standstill, and other times it might feel like we're moving 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But what we get to continue to do is renew our commitment. And, we can talk about commitment in the context of, in so many different contexts, right? We can talk about commitment in our beingness, who we have a commitment to show up as in the world, how we choose to be in the world. And there are diversions sometimes from that commitment to our highest values or who we choose to be. And what we get to do is to bring ourselves back to those commitments, to putting one foot in front of the other, to being present. So we all face such a wide range of experience, right? Sometimes we feel really gratified and proud, and other times we feel disappointment, shame, all kinds, the whole spectrum. And through it all, we get to come back to self and renew ourselves and recommit to our continued journeys. So I told you I've been reading this book. I'm going to share it with you, The Energy of Money. And I highly recommend it. I've been reading it because as you know, I'm developing a course to transform our relationship with money. So I've been schooling myself in courses or programs that other people have put together. And so this commitment around building this course is founded in a desire to be shifting our cultural orientation to money and material possessions and externalization of our worth, and to shift our way of being and our sense of sufficiency. Anyway, I'm excited to be building it, and I'm taking a course to learn how to do this, and I'm sharing this with you because there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of energy, and there's personal growth at the same time that there's learning, which I guess we can call that personal growth too. And sometimes it can, I can feel overwhelmed, and I know that this is the case for all of us, right? That there are things that we look to undertake in life where, and this has sort of been a theme for the week, is beyond our ableness, right? So when we're stepping into the unknown, taking another step forward on a path where we don't actually know the turns and twists, that it can bring up all kinds of stuff. And we get to calibrate to that, so sometimes we move more quickly, sometimes we move more slowly. And the question is, when we have those experiences of overwhelm or frustration, how do we re-inspire ourselves? And I was just using this example because it's most immediate for me. It's like, okay, keep going. Okay, keep going. How do we do that? What do we do to continue to put one foot in front of the other? And it occurs to me that one of the ways that we can do that is by saying just one more step, just one more. And there are times when we get to give ourselves the gift of resting, also to allow yourself some distance to then be able to come back and take the next step and the next step. But what we're talking here about is not only renewed commitment, but how do we re-inspire ourselves? How do we recalibrate when it just feels like we can't? Either it feels like we're trudging along, or it feels like we just can't even take another step. And it's interesting, I was working with a client yesterday who pretty much had hit a wall. They've been overextending for a really long time, just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, to the point where they just want to crawl into bed and hide and never come out. And we were able to do a session yesterday that radically shifted their experience, because they gave themselves permission to take care of themselves. They gave themselves permission to step back and just take a well-deserved and long-needed break, to just say, okay, now I get to recalibrate, I get to rest, I get to focus on me instead of pushing myself like a machine, so there are times when that one more step is not going to happen. And we don't have to push ourselves to the point where we're incapable of taking that one more step. We get to take those rests along the way as we put one foot in front of the other. And sometimes just keeping our focus right in front of us is something that can be profoundly helpful also in counteracting the overwhelm that can occur when you're trying to project yourself all the way down to the end of the journey, and all this stuff that has to be done on the way from here to there, or all this learning that has to be accomplished on the way from here to there can feel like an avalanche. So in those moments, it's useful to say, okay, what can I do now? And now, and now. And as we do that, we end up progressing along that path, along that journey. And it's interesting to notice particularly when we're stepping into arenas beyond our ableness or beyond our knowing, that it stirs the pot in a big way, right? We get, some of us might get anxious, some of us might feel paralyzed, some of us just go into avoidance, and maybe it's a good time to eat, or maybe it's a good time to check my emails or play the game that I play on the phone, or that we have all these strategies to cope, which can be, in moderation, can be positive, and sometimes they can be reaching into the extreme, right? That take us kind of left turn off the path, and we have to find our way back again. And so I'm wondering what kinds of things you do for yourself to inspire you to continue along the journey, or to take a needed break, and then come back with fresh eyes and new energy. So I guess the caution here, or the suggestion, is that when we're on this long trajectory, there are going to be ups and downs. And if we can accept that, then perhaps we can be able to relate to it without reacting to it, that we can care for ourselves in an appropriate way along the path. So Rosalind says the process of being able to let go of unneeded or not valuable tasks. That's huge, Rosalind. It's huge because, some of us feel accomplished through doing, but a lot of the doing that we do is not so important. It's just not, it's a time filler. It's an energy deflector, perhaps. Good morning, Jenny. Welcome. It's so good to have you here with us. We are talking about putting one foot in front of the other. And Jenny says, what about unmet needs? Such a good question. So the challenge with unmet needs, one of the biggest challenge with unmet needs is that we often are looking to other people to fulfill those needs for us. And that's kind of an exercise in futility. Sometimes people meet our needs, but if our well-being, this was one of the things that we first learned when I was getting trained in neurolinguistic programming, NLP. One of the things that we needed to do was to create a well-formed outcome. So one of the characteristics of a well-formed outcome, one of the primary characteristic of a well-formed outcome, is that it has to be within your control. And so if I have made an outcome that is reliant on other people's behavior, I'm in trouble because I can't control that. And so if the so for instance, if a client were to come to me and the outcome that they wanted is that they wanted their spouse or their partner to be acting or behaving in a different way, that's not a well-formed outcome because it's not within their control. So a well-formed outcome would be perhaps for them to feel more loving toward the other person, and they would know that they felt more loving in this, that, and the other way. It's something that you can identify. It's something that's within your control. And that might even be a reach, but it is sort of within one's control. It's within one's purview, I guess, to be able to shift our beingness, like that's the intention. I don't know if that's actually a well-formed outcome, but it's closer to the realm of one's own control. So as soon as we make our well-being or our outcome dependent upon somebody else's behavior, it's not a well-formed outcome, because we don't have the power to have that happen. We might be able to influence it. We might be able to beg and plead. We might, but it's not something that we can control. So when we look at unmet needs, maybe we can look at there may be a need underlying that need. And we can look at, well, what does it take? What is the story that we have underneath that need? What's the history? Where's it coming from? And is that actually the need that isn't met, or is there something else? And is that something we can provide ourselves? So one of the things that I have seen with folks is that when people are yearning for love, there's often a lack of self-love. When we look to somebody else to fill our hearts, there's often a gap in our own connection to our heart and to filling our heart. So Jenny says, on Mother's Day, I mentioned to my daughter I wanted to make a trip up, and my grandson's birthday that has passed, then drive up to visit my mom. My daughter said that she didn't know when she could get a time for me to visit. And so, Jenny, you're making, I understand the hurt of that. I do. And I'm sorry for the hurt of that. And you're making your well-being dependent upon your daughter. And that's a crapshoot, like you're needing something from her, and the more you need it, the less she's going to be willing to fulfill it, is my guess. So if any of us can express our desires, if we can express our desires without attachment, That's I guess that's the it's sort of a Zen koan, right? Like, how do you have desire without attachment? And there, I think that we have the ability to connect more deeply to our motivations, when we're needy. People perceive that as manipulation. People perceive it as something trying to consume them, oftentimes, and they will run from it. When we're whole, then if they show up, great, and if they don't show up, they don't show up. It's not about you, it's their stuff. Jenny says, I was sad and homesick. I told my mom about it. She said I was making a big deal about it. And I can understand why it feels like a big deal. And there's a part where it can be sad, and we can allow people to have their decisions and not have a huge story about it. It's not easy. It's not easy to get to that place necessarily. But we can get to that place, and there's more freedom there. And Rosalind says, putting one in front of the other, EWN is a community that's supportive. I appreciate the core connectors in this community. Thank you, Rosalind. I do too. And being a supportive community, putting one foot in front of the other, it's like we get through things, and hopefully we get to, as we're putting one foot in front of the other, we get to smell the flowers along the way, and we're not just so focused on one foot in front of the other, because then we miss all the periphery. And so Jenny says, my family has plans that I'm excluded from and uninvited. I've had periods in my life where that was the case for me too, Jenny, and it can be really hurtful. And it also can be like, there is a place where we get to shift our focus from out there to in here, and finding what's going to fulfill us, so that we can be whole, so that we can heal whatever the resentment is. It's not easy. My whole life has been about healing my family and the relationships in my family, and I see where there's been some progress, and I see where there is still room for change. And the thing is that as I become more whole, then I'm a better person in the family, and things have shifted. The perceptions of me, the relationships to me have shifted radically as I have shifted. And there's a difference between sadness and need. So I think all I can say is that I suggest you find ways within yourself to be present to, you said you feel unloved and abandoned and rejected. And so I invite you to, as tough as it is, I invite you to look at the places where you're rejecting yourself, where you're not loving yourself, where you've abandoned yourself, and to deepen that connection with you, so that you can have more space for people to be how they are. And what I notice is when there have been times in my family when I have had those feelings of being rejected and abandoned, that when I shifted my being, I was better able to deal with whatever the circumstances were. Things are as they are. And we get to be with things as they are. And the stories that we create, the unloved, abandoned, rejected, those are stories that we create. And even if somebody says, I don't love you, like I have had times where I have been told by relatives, I don't know if I do love you. And so I appreciate that you're saying, I feel I don't matter and am invisible. Those are all things that you get to work on you. That those are feelings that are held internally. Those are internal wounds that are calling for your healing of them. And we cannot make our worth as humans dependent upon other people's perception. We cannot make our validity as human beings reliant upon someone else. And this is where the one foot in front of the other comes in and is so important, is that path of healing is not an easy path. Nobody, I've been down that road. I know it's not easy. And there are still moments when I get to look at what's my story when somebody is behaving the way they're behaving and I feel rejected or I feel judged or I feel abandoned. I get to look at, well, what's going on in me? What's the story that I'm creating? What meaning am I taking away? How am I devaluing myself? How am I not in my wholeness? What nurturing can I give to me? Because that is within your control. And as we heal, it's remarkable how things around us heal. It's remarkable. And the deepest lesson is, don't take it personally, even when people direct it personally, because it's their stuff also, and then we take the ball and then we run with it and we continue to make ourselves even more deeply miserable with it, right? It's a matter of redirecting our focus and redirecting our hearts, and it's not easy. Nobody's saying it's easy. It takes courage to put one foot in front of the other. You're right. Jenny says my happiness comes from within myself. I understand the desires, and you get to remember that your happiness comes from within yourself and the stories you choose to tell yourself. And I am sorry for the pain that you're experiencing. I understand it. I really do. Through rifts in my own family. And I wish you the magic of a transformation in that. And I promise you that transformation is going to be rooted in you and how you be and your healing of you. And as a result, that will ripple out in the world. And remember that you can't control other people's behaviors as much as much as you might want to. So we go through the dark night of the soul, and that time of going through that darkness can be one of the richest experiences for our own transformation. It doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's easy. And I just wish you grace in your passage through that. And one foot in front of the other. It takes commitment. It takes persistence, and just refocusing and redirecting. And it's as horrible as you allow it to be. And that may seem harsh, but that's actually the case. You know, that when we say it's horrible, it becomes more horrible. When we allow things to be as they are, even though we don't like them, it is how it is. I hate it. It feels horrible. Then at least we know where we are and we can move from that space. But we need to allow things to be as they are in order to respond in an appropriate way. And truly, it is how it is. And we're the ones that say it's horrible, it's wonderful, it's abandonment, it's love, whatever. We're the ones that say that. And it is how it is. And that's the thing, putting one foot in front of the other to move forward into discovery, into new possibility. It can be a difficult journey, and may your steps along the path be graced for all of us. So with that, that's it for today and for this week, and encouraging all of you, all of us together, to imagine ourselves arm in arm, putting one foot in front of the other. And Carolyn says, you have to believe in yourself. You cannot control what others say. You have to move on. And it's very much easier said than done. We all know it's not easy. And the biggest gift that we can give ourselves is the gift of our own wholeness and healing. And it's not easy. I get it. So it's not easy until it's easy. You know, until we stop trying to make it be something other than it is, it's hard. When we start allowing things to be as they are, then there's a shift. The struggle shifts. So with that, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I encourage you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And I am so grateful to each of you for being here and having these conversations and being vulnerable and being willing to look even when it isn't comfortable. So until next time, I wish you a wonderful weekend. So much love to you.